Hello and welcome to the Today's Homeowner Weekly Podcast. We're here to help you with the challenges we all face as homeowners. I'm Danny Lifford.
And I'm Joe Truini. And each week, Danny and I are here on the podcast to answer any and all home improvement questions.
And we want to hear from you. Send us your questions or comments at todayshomeowner.com/podcast.
Okay, Danny, let's get started.
Today's Homeowner Podcast is brought to you by the Home Depot. How doers get more done. This week, we talk with a homeowner that's a brand new DIYer, and they're about to tackle installing some wood trim inside. We get them pointed in the right direction. Also, rust stains on asphalt shingles. Boy, it seems like we hear about this more and more. Well, we've got a solution for that. Also, we give some tips to someone that's really plagued with a cigarette smell in their house. It's really a tough thing to handle and a tough thing to get rid of, but we have a few solutions on that.
And I've got a simple solution how to use nail polish, white nail polish in the workshop. That's right. That's a great tip coming up soon.
Very intriguing. Got to hear that one. We got this and a whole lot more, so let's get started. Remember, it's 800-946-4420, the Today's Homeowner Hotline, and we're going to go right to the hotline right now. We have James in Colorado. James, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Danny. After watching a few of your videos online, my wife and I got inspired to add some trim to our bedroom windows.
Okay.
And so I bought a new miter saw
Gotcha.
to do the project, but we didn't budget in for a nail gun. So we're going to be doing this old school hammer and nails.
Okay.
So my question to you is, what type of nails should I use to attach the trim? Also, do you have any tips to help me keep from splintering or damaging the wood?
All right. Sure. We got plenty to share with you there. It is nice when you have the nail gun, but hey, we did it for years and years without it. And one of the things, your selection of your nails, you want a bright finish nail, a bright finish finishing nail. You don't want anything galvanized or anything along those lines. You don't need it because it's inside.
Okay.
And it also goes through the wood a lot better. I would also get a nail punch. That's something nobody thinks about, but when you drive that nail in, just before you drive it in all the way, you can use the nail punch to slightly recess it below the face of the wood. And are you planning on painting or staining the wood?
We'll be staining.
Okay. All right. Well, a lot of times people will stain it ahead of time, but you don't necessarily need to. But when you recess that nail a little bit, look for some colored putty. And now a lot of times I'll go ahead and stain first and then take the putty and just work it. Usually I'll buy 2 or 3 little cans, little containers of it and try it out to see which one really works the best. And it goes a long way. But then after that, you can move forward with it. Joe, any tips on the miter saw there other than keep your fingers away from the blade?
Keep all your fingers away from the blade. Yeah, James, I mean, for the miter saw, first and foremost, I assume you're cutting miters, right? 45-degree miters for the corner joints. So, make a test cut on a piece of scrap and make sure it's exactly 45. You can't just go by where the saw locks in. The saw will have a detent, meaning it'll automatically lock itself at 45 degrees, but it's adjustable. It might be 44, it might be 43, 46. So, I would cut it and then use a combination square to check it. So that's the first thing, because if it's not exactly 45 and you're trying to make a 90-degree angle by bringing 2 45s together, it's not going to work. You end up with a gap, and you don't want that. And as far as the nailing, now most casing, and I'm sure the one you bought, James, is thinner at the inner edge, meaning the edge that's going to go near the window, and thicker at the outer edge. And so you would need 2 different size finishing nails. I usually use they're sold as 4D finishing nails. They're 1.5 inches long. When you're nailing through the thinner edge, which is closer to the window, then you can use either 6D or 8D, and that's 2 inches or 2.5 inches long at the outer edge where it's thicker. I nailed up some casing recently, and it was over 1 inch thick on the outer edge. So, I went to the larger nail. And if you find it splitting, when you nail near the edge, just pre-drill it. Get a small bit, or you can even use a finishing nail. I showed a simple solution. You can chuck the actual finishing nail you're using to nail up the trim, chuck it into the drill, and use that to drill the hole. And this way you end up with a perfect size pilot hole, because it might split in the middle of the molding. It won't, but when you're nailing near the edge, near the end rather, sometimes the nails have a tendency to split it.
Oh, okay. What's the nail punch? What does that look like?
The nail set, yeah.
Oh.
So it basically almost looks like a big nail. It just has a head on it that you're able to, the small end will go right into the recess on the finished nail, and then just tap it with a hammer just to get it just below the surface of the trim.
Perfect. Okay, well.
But by the way, James, I'd recommend buying a set of nail sets. They come in a set of 3 for different size nails. So nail heads are like, one of them's really tiny and they get bigger and bigger because you can't use one on all nails. So, and they're affordable. Probably for $10 you get 3 of them. And find the ones that are coated in rubber, not the all metal ones. They're just much more comfortable when you strike them with a hammer.
Got it. Okay. Well, this will be our first carpentry project, so wish us luck.
Well,
right.
Absolutely. Good luck.
Good luck.
Be easy with that saw, and then I'm sure it'll be a success, and you'll be tackling everything around there. So best of luck to you, James.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it.
We do get a lot of emails, and we appreciate each and every one of them. You can send us one at todayshomeowner.com/ask. Let's tackle a few of these, including this one from Barbara in Colorado. I listen to your radio show every week, and I love it. Well, thank you, Barbara. About 6 years ago, I painted the interior of my home. I first scrubbed the walls and ceilings with TSP to remove the old cigarette odor. Then I applied a coat of Kills primer, followed by a top coat of acrylic latex paint. All was fine for 6 years, but now the old cigarette smell has returned. I'm very sensitive to cigarette smoke. Please help me out. Well, I can certainly
That's frustrating.
Hear the frustration in that. And, the thing about it, when you think of smoke and you think of someone that, maybe years and years they're constantly smoking, certainly the surface area is the first thing you attack, and Barbara did exactly what we would recommend. But boy, it gets down in all of those crevices and so forth, and the first thing I think about is your filtration through your heating and cooling system, and the newer filters that are available that actually are infused with charcoal so that it helps eliminate a lot of odors with cigarette smoke, pet odors, or whatever. I would certainly recommend Barbara change her filter to one of those more thorough type of filters. But what else could she do, Joe, other than just plug in a air freshener in every outlet? I mean,
yeah, that probably wouldn't help. But that is so frustrating when you think you solved the problem, and just goes to show you how deeply embedded that smoke odor was. Checking the filter absolutely would be the first thing to do, and the easiest thing. And she did, as you said, she did what we would recommend: prime it and paint it. Now, the only thing, if she had to go back and repaint, I would prime it with a product we mention here all the time called Restoration Primer. Mm-hmm. A bunch of different companies make one. And it's basically an interior primer. It's super thick, and it's specially designed to block heavy stains and odors, including nicotine odors. I had a personal experience with this where I had water staining on a ceiling, a relatively new leak, and I patched as much as I could, and I primed it, and I painted it, and it just bleached, it just sort of bled right through the primer. So then I had to go over with the Restoration Primer, and it disappeared. That was it. I wish I'd done that the first time. So maybe Barbara needs to do that. I mean, I hate to say now you have to go repaint your whole house, including priming it. And Restoration Primer is not cheap. It's about $38 a gallon. So, but that would probably solve the problem.
Talking about filtration and so forth, air filtration, I wonder if one of the ozone machines would help on that.
Yeah, do they work? I'm not really sure.
I really don't know. This is a perfect situation where if you're listening right now and you have some experience with the ozone machine, it'd be great to hear if that has been successful in your home. You can just pick up the phone right now, 800-946-4420, and let us know what you think there. I see Dennis is raising his hand. Maybe Dennis knows a little about this.
I've got one of those machines.
Really?
Yeah, and I've used it at my studio, Soundworks, and I've also used it at home, and it works. I mean, they really do work. It's unusual. I mean, it's some kind of electrostatic way that these filters, they're strange. They're glass, and they have these elements in them. I don't know how it's voodoo to me, but it definitely works. But they do caution that you should not keep them on for a long period of time because they can be deleterious to one's health.
Oh, that's too bad. I wonder if there's a whole house ozone filter where she could somehow hook it up to the furnace where it would, but if you can't use it all the time, I'm not sure.
I like the charcoal filter idea, but does the charcoal filter create more of a strain? In other words, is it harder to pull air through it.
No, the MERV rating on it is at a point where it doesn't restrict that at all. You know,
Right.
Of course, we talked about the controversy with that, where you have heating and cooling guys running around all the time saying, "Oh no, you don't put those good filters in, put the cheap filters
Right.
in,
Yeah.
so that they don't strain your air conditioned heating." What? That's completely contrary to what
Right.
the scientists talk about, and we certainly do not condone that. And putting these little $3 filters in, they're almost worthless. So, the charcoal infused filters, I have heard a lot of good things about those, especially people talking about pet odors and that kind of thing. So,
Right.
it might be something to try.
It's ironic that the charcoal filters were on the cigarettes, and now they're on the furnaces.
Isn't that the truth? Hey, let's get another email in here from Glenn in Wilmington, North Carolina. I have hardy board siding on my home, which is fiber cement. Some of the lower boards are chipped along the bottom edge. Is there some type of sleeve or channel that I can slip over the bottom edge and then paint it? Certainly there would be. I mean, you can get some aluminum coil stock and have a sheet metal contractor actually create that little channel that you can slip under it. It seemed like that would almost be something on the market that they would have for that very reason, Joe.
Yeah, well, they make J-channel for vinyl siding, and you could use that. My only concern is as the water's sheeting down this siding and it hits that, would it go over it? You know, would it slip into that channel?
That's what I always wonder
Yeah.
about, too. And having, you could always caulk it, and the paint's going to help you a little bit, but
Yeah.
and it's fiber cement, so the water's not going to affect it. But I don't know. That's
I wonder
a really,
why they're chipped. I wonder why they're all
well.
chipped.
I can tell
Just
you
from
on
people
that,
running into it with a string trimmer.
Well,
or
string
something?
trimmer, at my new house, I have to be so careful because that string will chip out a little bit of that. And then when it chips a little bit of the paint, then, it's a lighter color on the inside fabric in it or material in it. And so, boy, you have to be really, really careful.
Got to get out the Bondo.
I know it. I have a feeling that's in my future to do a little bit of that. You think of the fiber cement as being very sturdy, and it is. I mean, it's hurricane resistant, termite resistant, water resistant,
Fire.
but not string trimmer resistant. I can tell you that right now. It is time for our Best New Product segment, brought to you by the Home Depot. How doers get more done. Storage is always an issue for homeowners, which is why I wanted you to hear about this professional duty waterproof storage container from Husky. It's a great solution for your storage needs, both inside and out. First, there's a 6-point latching lid, an interior gasket which protects the contents from dust and water. It's great for storing tools on your back porch or in the bed of a truck. And the high impact resistant polycarbonate lid allows you to see exactly what's inside and can be hinged from either side or removed completely. There's also tie-down holes to secure the container, and you can store plenty with a weight capacity of 500 pounds. Plus,
Wow.
it's designed and tested to handle heavy abuse from dropping, stacking, and tossing. So, for more information on this unique professional duty waterproof storage container from Husky, just check it out at HomeDepot.com. Give us a call on the Today's Homeowner Hotline, 800-946-4420. That's exactly what Jim did. He's on the line right now with a problem that we're hearing more and more about. Jim, welcome to the show, and tell us about these shingles.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me.
Certainly.
Yeah, of course.
Hey, I have a problem with a discharge line from my HVAC. It came down and stained my asphalt shingles on a bay window. And researched a bit of it to see what would take care of it. And I thought I'd get some feedback from you guys before I got up there and tried something that may not work.
All right. Well, you certainly need to be careful when you get up there, and for several reasons. First, you don't want to fall, and second, you can't be too aggressive on the shingles. And Joe, we've talked about this a lot. We've had a wide range of discussions, from the change of manufacturing of asphalt that's allowing rust to get in there more than it used to. And but what do you think Jim should do in tackling that?
Yeah, so this is definitely rust, right, Jim? I mean, it's rust from the discharge pipe. It's not from metal rusting, usually it's like flashing, some cheap flashing or something like that. But you know the source, and it's definitely rust, right?
Yes, it is rust. It came from the emergency discharge line. I had a clog, and it went through the emergency, and it evidently was a rusted pipe.
All right. Well, they do make rust removers, but usually for something like this, which require like scrubbing, and you definitely don't want to do that because you don't want to, damage the roofing itself. So what you need is you need some oxalic acid. You can buy a 2-pound bag of it. It's usually sold in a 2-pound bag. It's about $15 or so. I think you can get it at home centers. You can certainly get it online, and it's made for cleaning all kinds of stuff. You can use it on almost any surface, concrete, wood. You can certainly use it on a roof. And you mix it according to the directions, and you apply it. And the oxalic acid, and that's the oxalic is spelled OXALIC. Oxalic acid.
Got it.
So it's harder to say than to spell. And so that's what you need. I mean, you're not going to need 2 pounds, but I think that's the smallest container I've ever seen. And then because this might recur. Maybe if the rust might come back someday, or you might have another discharge. So that's basically what you would need to use. It's pretty safe in handling. Of course, you want to wear eye goggles and gloves and all that stuff, and be really careful if you're up on a ladder. But go online or check out the local home center or hardware store and see if you can find that particular acid.
Okay, that sounds good. Is it applied with a pump sprayer or something of that nature? You
can spray it and brush it on, whatever you do. You just want to be, a little careful of the shingles, of course, because you don't want to scrub off any of the granules.
Gotcha.
But you can put it on almost any way, actually. I mean, like I said, a brush. It sounds like if it's on a window, it's a relatively small roof we're talking about, right?
It is, yes.
Yeah. So I think a brush, just an inexpensive paintbrush, would probably even work.
Okay. Very good.
All right, Jim, I think you've got your solution that you need there. And again, be real careful on that ladder. And if we can help you any other way, let us know.
I appreciate your help, guys. I enjoy your show.
Thank you very much. We certainly appreciate that. We also get a lot of emails about the popularity of simple solutions. Joe, anxious to hear another one today.
Okay, as I mentioned earlier, there aren't too many reasons why you might want to have nail polish in your workshop, but here's a really good one. Too many tools have little gauge numbers or graduations engraved in them. We're talking about squares, framing squares, layout squares, which people call speed squares. Sockets, often have that engraved dimension on it, whether it's 10 millimeters or 3/4 inch or something like that. And they're becoming almost impossible to see. I don't know if it's me or what, but I just find them really difficult to see. So here's how to make those highly visible, all those markings. Just take some white nail polish and brush it on. You don't have to worry about being too neat. You can actually slop it on, get it on and around the part you want to highlight, let's say the inch graduation on a socket. And then wait, don't wipe it off immediately. Let it set for, I don't know, maybe a minute or 2, 3 minutes, something like that. And then wipe off the excess. And what you want to do, of course, is leave the white nail polish behind in the engraved part of the tool. And you'll be surprised. It goes from not being able to see it at all to being able to see it from across the room. It really works well. Now, depending on the color of the tool, I guess you could use a different color nail polish, but I've found white nail polish works almost every time. And there's a video that you can see of me showing this tip right now at todayshomeowner.com/simple solutions. And go out and get yourself. And I bought the cheapest one I could find. I think it was 99 cents, and probably will last me the rest of my life. Do shake it up really well, though. That's something I did discover, that these need to be shaken up. Otherwise, it's really thin at the top of the little jar.
And I would think you could almost use some whiteout, some of the whiteout.
No, whiteout's not as durable. White nail polish is surprisingly durable. It's like paint almost, I guess.
Oh, I got you. Okay. Yeah. And you're funny, we also have shared before about keeping some lipstick handy.
Right.
Because when you're, cutting out a piece of paneling or you're putting some drywall up and you have your switches or your regular electrical outlets, to just put a little bit of lipstick around the face of that, push your drywall or your paneling against it, and it marks exactly where you need to cut out. But again, when someone, homeowner sees you with some lipstick hanging out of your tool bag there, sometimes you have to do some explaining, and the more you explain, the more it seems like you're just absolutely guilty of using that for something else, maybe.
Well, wait till they see the nail polish and the lipstick.
That's what I mean. That's where I was
headed.
The
mascara you carry around is going to be really hard to explain.
That's going to really cause a ripple in the organization. Okay, we're going to go right back to today's Homeowner Hotline. We'd encourage you to give us a call anytime, 800-946-4420. We have Greg on the line from New Jersey. Greg, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Tell us about this weather vane. Sounds very classy and very interesting.
Well, it's been in service for about 40 years, and it's like anything else. It looks good. It sits on a roof in the horizon at the back of the property, and it always heads east to west, and it's perfect. When the wind was blowing one day northeast, it was blowing the same way, and I said, no, you're not doing something you're supposed to do. So I went out, and I went up on the roof. It's frozen. I cannot get it to release. This thing looks as new as the day it was put up there.
Huh.
Wow.
Even up close.
Oh, okay.
It was made in the States, Whitehall Productions, whomever they are.
Uh-huh.
But they're good at what they do. Oh, by the way, you guys are pretty good, too. You put on a hell of a show.
Well, I appreciate
Thanks,
that.
Greg.
Thank you. Well, I tell you, when you have something like that, you got to get some type of lubricant down where the problem is. You certainly don't want to force it and so forth. And with it being still on the roof, limits you a little bit, because that would have been the first thing I would say is basically turn it upside down and start getting some penetrating oil to kind of run down into all of the joints, but certainly not possible if it's on the roof continually.
Well, I take it down. I go up on a ladder, take it down. I used blaze on it. Blaze didn't cut it. I used fire on it, or heat.
Right.
Torch. That didn't help. And I do not want to use a hammer.
No. I wouldn't use a hammer. Greg, the only thing I could suggest, first, if it was a rusted part, I mean, I've had great success soaking him in white vinegar, and it takes a little while. It might take a day or two, but that will dissolve the rust. This might be beyond white vinegar. You could try that, certainly. That might be beyond it. I know that WD-40 makes a spray called Specialist Penetrant, which is specially designed for freeing rusted parts. And liquid wrench, of course, you could always use. You'd probably have to, in both cases, soak them, as much as you could. But if not, you can try those, and they may or may not work. It's certainly worth trying them. But if none of those products or ideas work, you might have to try a professional grade penetrant, and that's what you're looking for. You're not looking for a lubricant. You're actually looking for a product that's called a penetrant. And
well,
go ahead.
Yeah, well, blaze is catalytic penetrating. It attacks the metal rather than the rust.
Right.
So I've used it, and I used it repeatedly, and it still would not bring loose the main joint that moves, which they tell you not to lubricate under any circumstances.
Right, exactly.
When you put it up there.
Well, I have one other suggestion, Greg, which is a professional grade penetrant, and I use this. I one time worked as a millwright, which is a mechanic that assembles and disassembles machinery,
Sure. Yeah.
and we used it in disassembling machinery. It's called it's made by a company called I think it's pronounced Kano. It's Kano, and the product is Aerocroil. I don't know what that means, but it's AEROKROIL. Aerocroil penetrating oil. It's not cheap. It's like $22 for a can. But if that doesn't work, I'm not sure. You'd have to take it to a fabricator and have him try to do something with it.
Right. Well, I appreciate it. If it works, it saves me a lot of money. $22 is not a lot of money, because I'm going to give it a shot.
There you go.
Well, like you said, you don't want to be hammering on it because you'll bust something and then you won't be able to get it fixed. So try any or all of these ideas and let us know how it worked out. I hope you get that thing spinning and facing in the right direction when the wind blows.
I hope so. You guys take care. You do a great job.
Hey, thank you very much, Greg. Now it's time for our podcast question of the week. We'd love for you to send us a podcast question by going to todayshomeowner.com/podcast podcast. This came from Jeannie in Kansas. What is the best solution for an ugly concrete patio? A concrete pad was poured when the house was built. We had this enlarged with some really poor results. The contractor never came back to score it, and now it has cracks all over and even sunk a little bit at the cold joint. We're considering staining it in a marble tone of brown since it would blend well with the cedar house. Also looked at some epoxy coatings or some of the Quikrete resurfacer. With it being in full sun, it seems like there's negatives to all of the options. Well, another frustrated homeowner there. And, and you know, when you think about a slab that's poured when a traditional house is built, generally always too small. People are saying, well, once I put a table out here, that's it. I don't have any room for friends and family and so forth. So adding on to it is a very common problem, or a common project, but so many times that cold joint just doesn't work out really well. I'm not sure if the resurfacer from Quikrete might be the way to go on this one, Joe.
Yeah, I'm not so sure. I mean, if it was just cracked is one issue, but it sounds like the additional patio wasn't properly poured or supported. I'm wondering if this was my house, if I wouldn't just deck over the whole thing. Just build a deck with some pressure-treated lumber as the understructure framing, and then you can make it as big as you want, the same size or larger. It would be relatively affordable. And then on top, you could, if budget allows, I would go to a composite material. And you can certainly get one that would complement the cedar, the look of a cedar house, and you'd have almost no maintenance because it would be a composite material, meaning no staining, no painting, no sanding, none of that, and it wouldn't crack. So, I wonder if you wouldn't be better off just hiding the whole patio underneath a deck.
And a lot of times people don't realize that you actually can glue the composite decking right to a concrete slab.
Sure.
So if it's in fairly good shape and doesn't have a lot of settling, then using construction adhesive, start right at the wall, glue that one down. You might want to have a few things, some blocks or something, some sand, heavy bags of sand or something to weight it down a little bit. But boy, you can run right across that thing and glue it down. You can also use Tapcons to go down through into the concrete, maybe here and there to hold it down. But I've seen that, and it works pretty well, and it'll be there, and you don't have to worry, as you said, you don't have to worry about the maintenance on it. So that might be another option for them.
Yeah, as long as the patio is relatively stable. But if this is cracking and heaving and sinking, then it's going to take the composite decking with it. With all that movement. So without actually seeing Jeannie's patio, it's hard to say, but it sounds like it's not in great shape, and the additional pour was not done correctly. So again, I would just float over it, I think.
Okay, Jeannie, there's a couple options. Check out Quikrete's Recap. Is the resurfacer that they've reformulated, and also check out the idea of putting some composite decking right over it. Thanks so much for that question, Jeannie. You can send us one right now at todayshomeowner.com/podcast. Thanks so much for the great reviews we get each and every week, and for the thousands and thousands that continue to download the Today's Homeowner podcast. I'm Danny Lipford, along with my buddy Joe Truini. We'll see you next week here on the Today's Homeowner podcast.